So let's start with our motivation. So how we think of ourselves has a great impact, and yet how we think of ourselves is just completely conceptual mind. It's not necessarily corresponding to an objective reality. It's just our thoughts about something. And so, for example, with our body, we have many interesting thoughts. Yeah, just our natural thoughts about our body. I like this, I don't like that. My body's beautiful, I want my body, whatever it is. Just all these thoughts that come up regarding our body. And then we start doing mindfulness of the body, directing our mind towards the parts of the body, towards the inside of the body, looking into the cause of the body, the result of the body after the mind leaves it. And by doing this, we get a whole different image of what our body is about. And then in tantric practice, we imagine this body dissolving into emptiness, and then thinking that our wisdom mind appears in the form of Chenrezig, for example, or Tara or Manjushri. And then with the body made of light, then we identify with a whole different kind of body. So it's quite interesting to see how our feelings about having a body can change quite dramatically, or our thoughts can, even though the body remains relatively the same. In Tantra, of course, we've tried to dissolve that body into emptiness. But still, the feeling of having a body there is very different. And so too with our ideas about ourselves. We may have certain ideas about what kind of person we are. And then, again, we start doing mindfulness of phenomena, for example, where we watch the different kinds of mental factors and thoughts that arise in the mind. And that can be very different than our usual image of who we are. And then in Tantra, if you dissolve also your mind into emptiness and imagine having the mind of an awakened being, then you have a whole other self-image. So what it boils down to is our thoughts very much create our reality. And so that's why one of the practices we do is called mind training or thought training. To observe the thoughts, to discern what are reliable thoughts, what are incorrect thoughts, and then to train the mind in what is realistic and beneficial. And so let's do this, not only for our own benefit, but also for the benefit of other living beings. And boy, do we have a lot of thoughts about them. Many of which are incorrect, so we have to, again, train our mind to see other living beings in a more realistic way. When we do, then generating bodhicitta becomes much easier. And so with that kind of altruistic intention, let's do our thought training this evening, listening to Nagarjuna's precious Garland. Are you more aware of how your thoughts are creating your experiences and your feelings and your moods and your emotions and your relationships and so on? That becoming more obvious during retreat? Yeah. So, we realize that a lot of the things that bog us down are only thoughts. They're not physical things that are getting in our way. It's only thoughts. And yet, very often, they're more a bigger hindrance to us than physical things. Yeah. Something to pay close attention to. So, last week we were talking about the 10 powers of the Buddha. Okay, so first one.
Knowledge of sources and non-sources.
Okay, so knowledge of sources and non-sources, which means...
That refers to the causes of happiness and suffering.
Yeah.
As I understood it.
The virtue is the cause of happiness, non-virtue is cause of the suffering, and it's never the opposite way. Okay. And the second one?
Specific causes of fruitional results.
Okay, so the causes of the fruitional result? Ripening karma. Yeah, fruitional result. Okay. Yeah. Okay, and that one, it means?
Knowing the karma of all sentient beings, where they've come from, what they've created, and where they are at that point as far as their karmic seeds.
What kind of karmic seeds they have that can ripen soon, what can't ripen soon. And so how does that help a Buddha? By knowing that. So he can teach people according to the potencies that can easily arise in their mind, and also teach them what they lack, how to create the karma for things that they lack. Yeah. The third one?
Knowing the interests and the thoughts of sentient beings.
Okay, and so what's that one about?
We went through, knowing what kind of teachings they need in different situations. How to communicate.
Yeah, and how to communicate with them. Yeah, how to teach them properly. Okay, and then the fourth one?
Knowing their dispositions.
Knowing their dispositions, which means?
Are they here, solitary realizers or bodhisattva dispositions?
Yeah, what vehicle are they following? Yeah? Are they going in the hearer path, solitary realizer path, bodhisattva path? And so that's going, why is that important to know? Yeah, so you know what to teach them. Okay, and then the next one. Okay, faculties, which is what?
Effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom.
Okay, faith, effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. And so what does knowing their faculties mean?
Are they modest, medium, or sharp faculty students, and how to have good expectations, being realistic, not unrealistic, but encouraging them where they are.
Yeah, so knowing what they're capable of. So if you know what vehicle they have the tendency to follow, and you know whether they're really bright, whether they're more modest, you know what level of faculties they have, and you know what interests they have, yeah, then you can really, you know, save a lot of time because you know exactly what they need at that particular time. Yeah, so you can really guide them properly. Yeah. And then the next one.
Knowing the paths that lead to various destinations.
Okay.
So this is to know what path people are on, and then how to help them, and what they're going to, how far they're going to go, what they're going to realize.
Yeah, and knowing like what they need to practice when they're pursuing a particular path. Yeah, if you're a hearer, what do you practice? If you're a bodhisattva, what do you practice? You have to teach those beings. No, you can hold on to it and answer a question too. Yeah. So you need to know that kind of thing.
This include knowing the destinations of sentient beings, as in the different rebirths in cyclic existence,
Yeah.
and the paths that lead to liberation and awakening.
Yeah. So what are the paths leading to lower rebirths, to upper rebirths, to liberation? Yeah. So again, knowing those gives you the ability to really benefit others. You can hold on to it too. Okay. No, then, yeah. No, it's her turn. Stacy? Yeah. Okay, no. What's the next one? You answer the question. That's where we ended it. Did we really? We sure did. Okay. Yeah?
To the fifth power, we went, so you taught about the ayah's faculties, but in His Holiness's book, One Teacher, you also he mentions the sentient beings' faculties of the three afflictions.
Well, no, it's knowing
What is it?
knowing the faculties of sentient beings. It doesn't matter. Well, Aryas are sentient beings.
Yes.
Yeah, so you want to know the faculties of whoever it is that you're guiding. Is that your question?
His Holiness's book pointed out the ayah's faculties and then the human or the humans' faculties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you heard His Holiness say something about that?
No, in the book One Teacher, Many Tradition, I looked it up.
Uh-huh.
How is it written there? And
Yeah, they often, with the 37 aids to awakening, you know, there are things that you practice before you enter a path, but they often align them with different levels on the path. But that can be confusing if you think that you don't practice them until after you've entered a path. Because if you wait until then, you're never going to enter a path. Okay. But then he said, it said the three poisons were the inferior faculties. Yeah, yeah. Well, if it's faculties, in terms of abilities, what you're capable of. Yeah. Superior faculties are Arya's unpolluted five faculties of faith, effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. Inferior faculties are the three poisons in the minds of sentient beings. This power knows which faculties are very strong and which are not. So now the seventh one, the power of knowing the afflictions and purifications. Okay, so what this one's about is about how to attain the various dhyanas and the meditative absorptions of the formless realm. Okay, so this is talking about, it's in the context of mundane insight. We usually think insight, or the Tibetans often say special insight. It's the same thing. We usually think insight means realizing emptiness, or we think that the union of serenity of insight is always focused on emptiness. That's not actually the case. When you are learning all these different, you're generating all these different meditative absorptions, it's done through a way. Well, let's say you attain the first dhyana, okay? Then you want to deepen your samadhi to get to the second one. In order to do that, you have to go through these different preparatory practices where you see the faults of the first dhyana and the good qualities of the second one. And so by doing that, then you get the energy that boosts your concentration so that you can actually attain the second jhana. Okay, and then when you're there, if you want to get to the third one, then again, you meditate on the faults of the second one and the benefits of the third one. Okay, so that's called mundane insight. Yeah, when you're doing that, and you, because you're having insight into the different dhyanas and the formless realm absorptions. Although it's strange, in the formless realm, I wonder, they're pretty out there. Yeah. So to look at, to be able to generate the thoughts of, the disadvantages of the lower level and the benefits of the higher level. Yeah. I wonder how they do that.
When I checked about the form ram, and then I read a little bit further, and he was describing that process for both arms. That they look to the higher arm in order to get boosted.
Yeah. Okay. So the point here is that the Buddha knows all these things. So the afflictions, the disadvantages of the lower level of meditative absorption, the purification, the benefit of the upper one, and then, strengthening the different faculties or mental factors in your level of concentration. Okay, so becoming extremely skilled in entering and leaving these different levels of concentration. And like I was saying before, it came up earlier, how, people who are really skilled, it must be really quite something how they can, they train to go up, each level of meditative absorption one by one, and then down each level, and then, go from the first to the third to the second to the fourth, to be able to jump and go in and out of these different levels of concentration very easily. It seems like, wow. Yeah, to be able to control the mind in that way must be really something. Okay. Then the eighth one is the power of remembering previous lives. So the eighth, ninth, and 10th, they're also called the three higher knowledges. And we also find them when there's discussion of the super knowledges that you get from concentration. Of course, here we're talking about them as qualities of the Buddha. So they're far beyond just the super knowledges that, sentient beings get through deep levels of concentration, because the Buddha's mind is completely unimpeded. Yeah. So, knowing all your previous lives. So, considering previous lives are beginningless, that must be quite something. You find all these people who are very curious what their previous lives are, but when I think of it, I think you must have to have incredible courage to really face what your previous lives were, and who knows what in the world you did. Yeah. And then some people try and use it in a psychological way, like, yeah. So I don't know, maybe, yeah, I mean, if you see habits and things from previous lives, that would be helpful. But then do you have to go to a therapist for your previous lives? This beginningless time. 3 million eons ago, my mother did this and my father did that. And yeah, I mean, at some point, it's like, don't you have to get over all of this? Yeah, I was always amazed, by how, Tibetans, they don't care at all about your story. No, Westerners want to go in. We want to tell them our whole family story and this and our trauma and all the unfair things that have happened, and we're neglected, and people don't love us, and on and on and on and on. And they don't really care. They don't seem to need to know that in order to guide us on the path. And they don't seem to think it's terribly important either. Yeah? And I have one friend, and it totally drives her nuts, because she has memories of abuse from being a child. And her teacher is going, yeah, so? And she's saying, why doesn't he understand, Doesn't he, understand how traumatizing this could be? And he's just like, yeah, not so interested in it. So I think, that could be, that's kind of like a koan. You can either get stuck in that, of, why aren't they paying attention to it? Or you could say, well, if my teacher doesn't think it's important, why am I so stuck in it? Yeah? Why am I going over it again and again and again if, my teacher doesn't, my teacher's telling me, familiarize your mind with bodhicitta. And what am I familiarizing my mind with? This happened when I was 5 and this happened when I was 6. Yeah? Quite interesting, isn't it? So I'm not saying ignore those kinds of things, but I'm saying, I think, the way the teacher is handling it is just saying, hey, you can look at these things from a whole lot of different perspectives. Yeah, and so just check it out. Okay, so that's the power of remembering previous lives. Yeah, so the thing about that is, if you remember that and you're trying to benefit sentient beings, then you'll know, like, who you had a trusting relationship with in the past. So that might be somebody that you want to, if you're into emanating bodies, and you see the people who you were close to in the past, then you can go and teach them the Dharma and lead them on the path. Okay? So, quite helpful to know past karmic connections, to know your own past lives. And I think especially if you're a holy being, you remember, all the trauma you've gone through in your beginningless lives. And human trauma is nothing, compared to when we were reborn in the 3 lower realms. Human trauma is a piece of cake. Yeah. And so, anyway, if you can remember all of that, then that helps you have compassion for whoever it is that you're trying to guide on the path, because you've experienced those kinds of things in the past. And maybe you're more familiar with how people get stuck, yeah, or what they need to hear. Yeah, amazing how attached we get to our stories, and how angry. I went in there and to tell my story, and all he does is go, then? Yeah, that's all. Then? But don't you realize what I've been through? Then? It's very interesting, very interesting. Lama Zopa. Yeah. Lama Yeshe would go, oh, it's okay, dear. What's next? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, everybody would go in to cry on Lama. Okay, next person. No. Rinpoche would just go, then? Look at his text some more. Oh, he's reading while I'm telling him my story. Or you see him saying mantra and doing his practices instead, while I'm telling him my story.
How many years later did it take you to be able to laugh about it?
I don't know. Just at a certain point, you just kind of give up. It's like, yeah, well, it's just, again, why do I make such a big deal out of my story? Yeah? Why do I have to make such a big deal? Well, it's mine. Yeah, and how many times have I rerun it in my mind? And how come I don't yawn again when I start to rerun it? I know the whole plot. You had something? Yeah.
Still, I imagine it's quite different for someone with compassion to ignore you than for someone with no compassion to ignore you.
Well, that's the thing. If somebody with no compassion ignores you, then you can blame them and still hang on to your story. When somebody with compassion ignores you, then you can either, as my mother would say, keep knocking your head against the wall, or you can do something different. Yeah, like maybe have some compassion for other people. Wow. What an idea. Yeah? What an idea. Open myself up and look at other people's pain and have some compassion for them. Wow. Yeah. You know. And then at some point, really, I mean, isn't our story boring at a certain point? Don't you just get tired of it? You know, it's like, oh. Yes. No. Okay, tell us about your mother and father. We could tell you about your mother and father. We know you very well.
That's not what I was going to say.
Okay.
What I was going to say, if you're going to listen.
Go on.
It was a few EMLs ago, but maybe we've done it a few times, where you had us write out our really important story, and then we gave it to someone else. And taking on someone else's story was totally boring.
Wasn't it? Completely boring. Yeah, you remember doing that. It's like, you know, yeah, because the instruction was, you take on their story, and every time you start with your own story in your meditation, you have to switch it to start worrying about and reviewing their story. Yeah. And also here we did it too. Yeah, it's very boring. Like, what's this person, you know? Yeah. Yeah. It's like, wow, they're so stuck. And like, for what? Yeah. But our own story. Yeah, we know about your family too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we all know about each other's families. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The thing that was funny about one of those exercises was that when I heard somebody tell my story, they didn't do it justice.
Yeah. That's really awful, isn't it? When they tell your story and they don't tell it with the with the drama that is embedded in it. Yes. The deep anguish and yeah. You should have everybody crying. Okay, now I'm getting an idea for Sunday's discussion group. Joking. Okay, then ninth, knowing the birth and deaths of all sentient beings, okay? So here you're not just seeing your own previous rebirths, but you're seeing sentient beings dying and being reborn, and dying and being reborn. And so just think, you know, one day, today, what the Buddha's seen in terms of different sentient beings dying and being reborn. Just even on planet Earth, how many people die every day on our planet? You know? I mean, there must be a lot of people, hundreds and thousands.
Or sentient beings, not just people.
Yeah, I was going to go to that after people, then take into account all the other sentient beings and different life forms, and then think of, you know, all the different habitats in the universe where there are different living beings. You know, could you bear to watch this, to see sentient beings dying and being reborn? Yeah. I mean, my goodness, what that does to you. Okay. And so, knowing all of that. Who's born where, undergoing what kind of experience. Yeah. And then the 10th power is the power of knowing the cessation of pollution. Okay, so here pollution means the afflictive obscurations and the cognitive obscurations. Okay, and so this knows, that it knows the paths to eliminate these various obscurations, specifically by the wisdom that directly realizes emptiness. Okay, and it knows the cessation of all of those afflictions. Yeah, and what exactly true cessations are, and then especially what this power knows is your own level of realization, and the level of realization of other living beings. So who has eliminated different pollutants and who hasn't, and what kind and level of different pollutants different sentient beings have overcome. Okay, so that enables you to speak with great confidence about your own level, as well as to know the levels of other living beings, which again is very helpful for knowing what to teach them and how to help them. And I was thinking too, when we talk about the previous one about interests, or dispositions, maybe interests is better. Like who prefers to meditate, who prefers to study, who prefers to offer service. There's so many different ways to practice Dharma, and it seems to me that if we're going to be practicing the path for quite a while, that we have to create all different kinds of karma. And so some lifetimes are going to be more devoted to study, more other lifetimes to maybe teaching, others to doing retreat, others to serving sentient beings, others to manifesting in different realms, to liberate beings, that there's so many different kinds of virtuous actions that you need to create. And so if a Buddha knows what particular sentient beings are interested in this particular life, that can also help them guide that sentient being. Yeah, because people really do, we're not cookie cutter disciples, are we? Yeah, we're all very, very different. And so, Buddhas who teach us have to be able to tune into the whole different varieties that we have, of qualities as an individual.
I read this one in my study. I thought immediately of the first time that you met Lama Zopa.
Yeah.
And he taught you about dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
And that came up immediately when I heard about connecting with the sentient being with where they are with their interests.
Yeah. Yeah. But my first time of meeting Rinpoche, or meeting any teacher, he was, he and Lama were my first teachers, still are my teachers. But I had gone to a talk given by one nun about, the Tibetans and things, and she showed slides. And I thought it was very interesting because I had been to India and Nepal before. And I had told her, well, if anybody comes into town for this retreat and they need a place to stay before the retreat, they can stay with me. So one of Rinpoche's old students came into town and she was staying with me. And so she learned that Rinpoche was arriving at LAX. Yeah. And so I had just been accepted into a semi-professional folk dancing group, with my dress to here and my hair almost as long, as short, hair down to here, dress up to here. And I had just gotten back from a rehearsal. And she said, oh, Rinpoche's arriving at LAX. I'd like to go see him. Will you take me? And so we drove to LAX. So this is in the days before TSA, where you could actually go to the gate and welcome people who were arriving. Remember that? Yeah. Yeah, the good old days. So, so we walked to the gate where Rinpoche and Lama were arriving, and they get off the plane. And they were coming from Hawaii, I think. And Rinpoche, we started talking. I had no idea who this guy was, Oh, I'm going to a retreat. Yeah, he's one of the teachers. But that's nice, he teaches meditation, I mean, I knew zero, yeah. So there was no faith, no respect, zip, yeah. So I go and he's talking about, I guess, SeaWorld or some kind of thing like that where he saw dolphins. And so we were talking about dolphins, yeah, at LAX. And that's how I met my teacher. Yeah, people have these great stories of, feeling rushes of bliss and hair standing on end and, I don't have any of that. Yeah, so we talked about.
That would have been interesting, your head standing on end.
Yeah, it would have, wouldn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So so that was my first meeting with Rinpoche, and and then I went to this retreat, and that was it. Yeah. So, yeah, but he definitely was talking to my level of mind, wasn't it? Yeah, that's what I could understand. Yeah, he didn't go, there are 3 sufferings in samsara and 6 types of dukkha and 8 in the human realm. And you've been born again and again and again with all these kinds of dukkha. That's not what he said to me. That's what he said later on, after I got to Kopan. But first teaching, encounter, no, dolphins. Yeah, they say they're such intelligent animals, and we watch them do tricks. And, yeah. Okay, so to continue with the 10 powers. So they are posited from the viewpoint of the Buddha's omniscient mind. So they're all talking about different objects that a Buddha knows. And it picks out these particular objects because that's what is more important, for benefiting sentient beings. But in fact, all of these different powers, are omniscient and know all objects. Okay. So I had a friend, who we were staying at Senjo Sukha Rinpoche's place. He was a old disciple of Rinpoche's too. And he kept on saying, I don't think the Buddha knows everything. Why does the Buddha need to know all the type of goldfish, That just is going to clutter his mind. He doesn't need to know that. I don't think he knows everything. Yeah. Interesting, way of looking at things. Yeah. Whereas, here, I mean, maybe he was looking at it that way in the sense that we, in order to know something, have to sit down and study it and try and remember it. Whereas a Buddha, in order to know something, because there's no impediment to perceiving things, the Buddha perceives it. So there's no effort in knowing all of these things involved. Yeah. And so maybe, knowing the number of goldfish in a pond might be very effective if you were trying to be of some kind of benefit to those goldfish. Yeah? Yeah, from a human being, how many goldfish are in the pond in Kazakhstan, I don't even know if they have goldfish there. We don't care about that. Yeah, but for Buddha who's trying to benefit those fish, then, that would be important. Okay, then I just wanted to give, before we go into the next verse. So that's talking a little bit about the Buddha's mind, the qualities of the Buddha's mind. When they talk about the Buddha's speech, they talk about sometimes 60 or 64 qualities of the Buddha's speech. And wow, when you think about these qualities, then you can really think about how a Buddha benefits sentient beings. Because of body, speech, and mind, it's principally speech. That's how the Buddha benefits sentient beings, principally through speech, not through the mind, because we can't communicate with the mind directly, Through the body, yes, but what's the most important way to help sentient beings? Teach them the Dharma. So that's through his ability to communicate. Yeah, and so, they say that whenever a Buddha speaks, everybody hears what they need to hear. Yeah. They also say that a Buddha can speak and he doesn't need a microphone. Yeah, and a sound system, that everybody just naturally hears him. Yeah, because you think, at the time of the Buddha, even in the Pali Canon, huge numbers of people would come to the teachings. Yeah, they didn't have sound systems back then. But somehow everybody managed to hear the teaching. Quite remarkable, and they didn't, I don't think, they do this when they want to make their voices project. The lamas, when they're going, oh, yeah. But I don't think the Buddha sat here like that the whole time when he was teaching. Yeah. So, everybody can hear, everybody hears what they need to hear. Voice is pleasing. Yeah. Some people have very beautiful voices. Have you noticed? And you can just listen to their voice for a long time. It has a very beautiful quality to it. And other people's voices are, not so nice. Yes?
It is said that if I don't have the karma, things like, that story that at Tisha, I think, he had somebody on his shoulder, and he went to town. Nobody could see him but a woman.
Oh, that was a sangha. Was carrying Maitreya on his. Yeah.
Okay. So a Buddha, that means if I don't have the karma to see him, he will never show up.
No, Buddhas can be there, but you won't recognize them as a Buddha.
Okay. Like all the people that are starving, why the Buddhas don't appear as food?
I think the Buddhas do appear as food to some of those beings who have the karma, but also in a worldly way, the food needs to get there. It can't magically appear. If you have a lot of sentient beings blocking the aid going to the people. Yeah. But then you think, why couldn't the Buddha manifest as, people who help the aid convoys?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I used to think about that, when they were trying to get the aid convoys into Syria, and then what's his name, Assad, it was, he sent out his troops who were stopping the convoys, and I was thinking, wow, could you as a Buddha appear as one of Assad's soldiers, but you let the convoys through? Yeah, but then probably somebody else would kill you. Yeah.
So what?
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, it'll probably happen pretty soon. So, but so much depends on those sentient beings being open. They have to have the karma to receive it, because as we know, everything is dependent arising. Yeah, somebody helping us. It isn't just I need help. It's I need to be receptive to this help that I'm getting. Yeah, and if we aren't receptive, the Buddhas can, talk and teach until they're blue in the face, and we'll have left, hours ago. So, yeah, it depends a lot on people's karma. Yeah, but as they say, you don't know who's a Buddha and who's not. And so sometimes, they can work in very interesting ways. Yeah. You don't really know. Okay. So so the Buddha's speech, and then the Buddha's body, So talking about the Sambhogakaya, the enjoyment body, and then the emanation body, or Nirmanakaya. So the Sambhogakaya is the body that the Buddha has, where they teach the Arya Bodhisattvas. So these enjoyment bodies, each Buddha has one of them, and they exist in a Pure Land. And they have 5 certainties, okay? So one certainty is that they reside in the Akanista Pure Land. So I think there's many, many Akanista Pure Lands. Yeah, each Buddha has one. They have the 32 signs and 80 marks of a Buddha. So the pure ground bodhisattvas also gain these, but they aren't as remarkable as those of the Buddha. And so we talked about the 32 in chapter 2 or 3, was it? Chapter 3, I believe. And then he abbreviated the 80 marks. Okay, then the third quality of a Sambhogakaya is they're surrounded only by Arya Bodhisattvas. Yeah. So you might say, well, why? Why can't I go too? Yeah. Well, you can go, but you have to be able to get yourself to Akanista. Yeah. And, the infrastructure in the U.S. is kind of poor now, so, yeah, Amtrak doesn't run there, and Greyhound doesn't go there. So you have to, use your mental faculties to get yourself to Akanista. So teaching only Arya Bodhisattvas, and then teaching only the Mahayana Dharma. Okay, so the path to full awakening. And then the 5th quality is that these, the enjoyment bodies remain eternally. Yeah, they don't stop and start, and they aren't there sometimes and not there the other time. Okay, but they're there eternally. So those are called the 5 certainties of the enjoyment body. And then the Nirmanakaya, the emanation body, is, remember we talked about this before, the supreme emanation body, which is like the Buddha who turns the Dharma wheel, and then as artisans, and then as whatever other sentient beings or even immaterial objects are needed. Okay, so then verse 463. The limitlessness of a Buddha's excellent qualities is said to be like the limitlessness of space, earth, water, fire, and wind in all directions. Okay, if the causes are reduced to a mere measure and not seen to be limitless, then one would not be confident that the good qualities of the Buddhas are inestimable. Okay, so the idea of these two verses is that just as the causes for all of these qualities individually that a Buddha have, just as the causes are limitless, so the resultant qualities are also inestimable. Okay? So, if you think of the universe, there's space, earth, water, fire, and wind in all directions infinitely. Yeah. When I was a kid, I remember lying there. I loved to look at the sky and at night, and look at the stars and think, what's out there in these other universes and different things. And is there an end to the universe? And I used to think, can you go out so far and there's just space, 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 and then there's a brick wall that's the end? And I said, no, you can't have that, because if you have a brick wall, there's going to be something on the other side of the brick wall. So I would just think about infinity that way. Yeah, things are infinite. They just go and go and go, and there's never any end. Yeah, there's no brick wall. Okay, so you don't say that the qualities of the Buddha are infinite. Well, the qualities, maybe you could say, but you don't say the causes are infinite, because if the causes were infinite, then a bodhisattva could never complete them. But they are inestimable, okay, or inconceivable, something that we can't understand. Okay, so the 5 elements go throughout space, and by the fact of creating all these inestimable causes on the path, then somebody can attain Buddhahood with the qualities that are also inestimable. So you can't ask a question, well, how many sentient beings can a Buddha help at one time? Yeah, you can't ask that kind of question. Yeah, because it's just, we can't conceive that. Okay, then now we're going to go into a new section, okay, which is the way to amass limitless merit. So, in this chapter, the chapter started talking about the 57 faults to abandon, then the 6 perfections to practice, then the grounds, the 10 bodhisattva grounds, then the qualities of a Buddha. So we've been kind of going step by step. And then here, it's like, okay, we've gotten to Buddhahood. You want to be a Buddha? You need to create a lot of merit. We talked about this in earlier chapters, but here I'm going to give you a nice, easy practice to do to help you create a lot of merit. Okay? So verse 465 says, therefore, each day, 3 times a day, before a statue, stupa, or elsewhere, you should perform the recitation of the following 20 verses. Okay, so he's saying 3 times a day. Why 3 times? Hopefully because one time you'll have a little bit of concentration when you're doing it. Yeah. They say that's why we need to do certain, mantras and so on 100,000 times, so that maybe one time we can be fully have the right kind of mind when we recite it. And then to recite these before a Buddha, or a symbol of the Buddha, such as a statue or a painting or a stupa or, something else of a Buddha or of a Bodhisattva. Yeah, if you visualize the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the space in front, then that's fine too. I think Nagarjuna is emphasizing something physical because by having something physical, it reminds us to imagine the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in front of us. Yeah, and it. I don't know about you, but for me, it's different. If I look at a statue versus if I just imagine in my mind, yeah, there's something different going on. It also depends on what the statue is, but with imagining, yeah, you make the whole universe full of Buddhas, and yeah. So you're not just sitting in front of one, like one deity card, like that. But it's just you put Buddhas in all of space, and that really, enlarges your mind quite a bit. Okay, so why don't we recite this? If you all have the blue prayer book. Yeah, page 103. Honoring in all ways the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and also the Bodhisattvas. In them I take refuge and pay homage to those worthy of homage. I burn negativity, embrace all kinds of merit. I rejoice in all the merit amassed by sentient beings. With bowed heads and palms together, I beseech all perfect Buddhas to turn the wheel of Dharma and remain as long as sentient beings remain. May all sentient beings be endowed with unsurpassed bodhicitta. May all sentient beings have immaculate faculties and transcend the unfree states. May they control their own actions and live by right valuehood. May all embodied beings have jewels in their hands, and may the limitless amount of all kinds of necessities remain inexhaustible for as long as cyclic existence endures. At all times, may all women become supreme persons. May all beings be endowed with intelligence and legs. May all beings have a good complexion and also a good physique. May they be radiant and pleasant to behold. Free of illness, may they be strong and live long. May they gain expertise and skillful means and become free of all dukkha. May they become devoted to the three jewels and have the great treasure of the Dharma. May they be adorned with love, compassion, joy, and equanimity in the face of hardship, veracity, ethical conduct, fortitude, meditative stability, and wisdom. Thus adorned, may they become all blessings and obtain brilliant signs and marks. May they traverse without hindrance the 10 grounds to the inconceivable. May I also become adorned with these good qualities, this as well. May I become free from all faults, and may I attain supreme love of all beings. May I perfect the virtues to which all beings aspire, and may I always dispel the dukkha of all embodied beings. In all worlds, may all things who are feeling anxious due to fear become completely fearless merely by hearing my name. From seeing and thinking of me and from becoming here, may all beings all become clear-minded, undisturbed, and at ease. May it be definite that they will awaken, and in all their future lives, may they all find super knowledges. In all ways, may I always do what brings benefit and happiness to all beings. May I always dissuade all at once all those beings of any world who intend to engage in negativity without doing them any harm. Like the earth, water, wind, fire, medicinal herbs, and the trees in the wilderness, May I always freely be an object of enjoyment for all beings as they wish. I be beloved of beings, and may they be more beloved to me than myself. May I bear the results of their negativity, and may they have the results of all my virtue. As long as there is even one sentient being somewhere who is not yet free, may I remain in the world for that being's sake, even if I have attained peerless awakening. If the merit of making such statements were to be material, it would not fit into the worlds as numerous as the grains of sand of the Ganges. This is what the Blessed One said, and the reason is here to be seen. The worlds of beings are immeasurable, and the intention to aid them is likewise. Okay, so we'll start going through these. The first 3 verses are kind of the 7-limb prayer, but you have to search for the limb of offering, and the limb of dedication comes after that, starting with 469. Okay, so if we start with 466, honoring in all ways the Buddhas, Dharma, and Sangha, and also the Bodhisattvas, I take refuge in them and pay homage to those worthy of homage. So there's kind of 2 things here. One is honoring the Buddhas, the 3 jewels, and then the second one is taking refuge in them, which here includes homage to those worthy of homage. Okay, so it starts out with, taking refuge, it starts out with honoring them. Okay. I read a different translation, that had these 2 in a different order. Yeah, I think in Jeffrey's translation. Does anybody have Jeffrey's translation on their computer? Yeah, you want to read it? Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, but anyway, so we have the thing of taking refuge in all those worthy of respect. And so I think, we understand refuge means entrusting our spiritual guidance to them, because they're trustworthy, because they have the capabilities to lead us. And so especially after thinking about all the qualities of the bodhisattvas and then the Buddhas, now taking refuge in them really makes a lot of sense, because you know what you're taking refuge in. It's not something blind like, well, yeah, I heard Buddha's a good guy, or I heard Buddha knows everything. But, the more you study, the more you learn the paths, the more you learn any aspect of the Dharma, the more you learn what the Buddha's mind is about. Yeah, because anything that we learn is an aspect of the Buddha's mind. Yeah, the Buddha's not going to teach us something that isn't, that we don't need for becoming awakened. Yeah? Okay.
466, going for refuge with all forms of respect to the Buddhas, excellent doctrine, supreme community, and bodhisattvas. I bow down to all that are worthy of honor.
Yeah. So I don't have the Tibetan here to see which is first in the Tibetan, but the order is reversed. Jeffrey has refuge first, then honoring them. And this verse has honor first and then refuge. I wonder if somebody can find the small book in the library, John Donne and Sarah McClintock's translation, then I can look at I think it might have the Tibetan in it, in which case I could see which one's first in the Tibetan. Yeah, because it makes more sense to me to take refuge first. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So with refuge, the more we know about the qualities of the Dharma, the more we know the qualities of the Buddha, the qualities of the Sangha. The whole Lam Rim, when they're teaching us the Lam Rim, when they're teaching us the philosophical texts, anything we get, this is all what's in the Buddha's mind, or what the Buddha has realized. Okay? So the more we contemplate it and learn it and internalize it, then the more our own mind approaches Buddhahood, and the more our own mind, I guess you could say merges with the Buddha's mind, or it feels close to the Buddha's mind. When we start out the path, we don't know very much, and Buddha seems like somewhere out in outer space, yeah. But then as you begin to practice and you begin to learn what the Dharma is and you start to contemplate it in your own mind, then you feel closer to the Buddha, don't you? Yeah? Because you know more what's going on in a Buddha's mind. So you really start to develop a trusting relationship. Okay. So we take refuge to those beings, worthy of homage, worthy of taking refuge in. Lama used to, when he would give refuge to new people, and he would have to explain what refuge was, he said, "Oh, you people, you already know about refuge. You take refuge all the time. What do you take refuge in? The refrigerator. Yeah. Your boyfriend, your girlfriend, you take refuge in them. Yeah, you take refuge in money." Yeah, and he was absolutely right, because taking refuge is a way to, what we're trying to do is find a way out of our dukkha. And so, where do we usually turn when there's dukkha in our minds or in our lives? What do we usually do? We eat, yeah, drink or drug, buy things.
Daydream.
What?
Daydream.
Daydream.
Find somebody to listen to our story.
Yeah, find somebody to listen to our story.
Find an activity to do, just a project.
Yeah, find some kind of project, something to do. Yeah. Watch television. Yeah. Scan the internet. Go shopping. My goodness. Yeah, we go shopping when we're miserable. Yeah, if I buy something, I'll feel better. Yeah? Huh?
Listen to Dharma teaching.
That's good if that's what you do when you're miserable. Yeah? Huh?
But that one works.
Yes, that's the difference. Yeah, if you listen to Dharma teachings, yeah, it will work. Yeah, but the process of looking for a way out of our misery is not new to us. It's just usually where we go for refuge. It doesn't have the capability of leading us out of dukkha, and often leads us into more dukkha. Yeah. There's this beautiful verse in the Pali, not verse, but passage, where the Buddha was talking about when he was a sentient being, and he was saying, me, a sentient being full of defilements, I would go and look for other sentient beings full of defilements. Yeah? And that's exactly what we do, don't we? We're one sentient being full of defilements, and we go look for, to take refuge in another sentient being who's also full of defilements. Yeah, what's going to come of that? A what? A party. Yeah. So, so figuring out in our lives, where are we going to turn for refuge? What is a viable refuge that can actually help us? And then remembering to turn to that refuge when we're miserable. Yeah. And even when we're not miserable. Yeah. But because actually, if we've understood the three kinds of dukkha, we'll know that, even when we're happy in samsara, it's still the, pervasive dukkha of conditioning. So also to take refuge then. Okay, and then honoring in all ways the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and also the Bodhisattvas. Yeah, so honoring them, this could mean reciting praises to them. Yeah, contemplating their good qualities. It can also include bowing. Yeah, homage. Well, the word homage often means, prostrating and offering, and all of those things are incorporated into homage, or maybe here incorporated into honoring. Because if we honor somebody, what do? Yeah, I mean, we show them respect. We give them gifts. That's in our conventional world to, how we show respect and honor. So they talk about, this is, one reason for bowing or prostrating. So there's three kinds of bowing, or three kinds of prostrations. One done with our body, with our speech, with our mind. Okay, so the physical prostrations, as you've been learning here, there's the Tibetan way to do them, there's the Chinese way to do them, there's the Theravada way to do them, so you learn to be flexible. In the Tibetan way, there's also the short prostrations, there's the long prostrations. What we always do is, other traditions, they usually put their palms flat like this. In the Tibetan, we tuck our thumbs in. The idea being that there's an empty space representing emptiness, and then also thinking that our two thumbs are like a jewel, maybe the jewel of our own Buddha nature, or a wish-fulfilling jewel, or something like that. The idea being that we're going in the presence of the holy ones, we're not empty-handed. Yeah. Okay, and so there's the 5-point prostration, where we touch the crown of our head, thinking to gain the usnisha that the Buddha has, touch our forehead to gain the physical qualities of the Buddha, our throat to, purify our physical qualities, gain the physical qualities of the Buddha, purify our negativities of speech and gain the Buddha's verbal qualities, purify our negativities of mind and gain the Buddha's qualities of mind. Yeah, so we touch the 4 places. Then we go down, you put your hands flat, yeah, not like that, not like that, yeah, just flat. You put your hands down first, then you put your knees. Yeah. Some people, I don't know if maybe it's because, I don't know, in Catholicism, when you bow, do you put your knees down first? Yeah, when you genuflect, you only touch one knee. And then you stand up, okay. Yeah, so it's knees down first. Yeah. Oh, you don't go, it's just.
So when they take their vows, the fathers and all that,
they lay flat, yeah. Right, yeah. But anyway, yeah, some people put their knees down. We should put our hands down first, then our knees. So 2 hands, 2 knees, touch our head. Those are the 5 points. And then push up. And the idea is you come up quickly symbolizing that you're coming out of samsara quickly. Yeah. In the Chinese bowing, sometimes you stay on the ground quite a long time. Yeah. And that is, I think, so that you could really reflect and imagine light coming from the Buddha into you and really purifying. It gives you some time to really imagine that. So I think all the different ways have different meanings and different purposes. Then when you do the long ones, you touch the 4 points, and you can imagine light coming from the Buddha. You know, white light here, red light here, blue light here for body, speech, and mind. Yeah, you put your hands, your knees, then stretch out your hands again. Yeah, and lie flat, lift them up, then put your hands back once, and push yourself back, and then put your hands down on the floor again, and then push yourself up. Okay? So you can also slide down. Yeah, if you have a prostration board, many people just, yeah, but then you kind of have to step back up. So coming back up can be more difficult. Some people, they move their feet. We should try and keep our feet, our feet, of course, when we go down, they bend, and, so we're not flat-footed on the ground. But it's not like you move your feet when you're standing up. It's more that your feet are like that, and then you put them down. Okay? Yeah, some people hop. And to move our hands both at the same time as we go. Yeah. So this is really something that when new people come here, we need to teach them and go over it several times, because often people forget. Yeah.
People here, when you do their long prostration, their feet are in the air.
Their feet are in the air,
Yeah.
like lying on your belly, but your feet should usually stay.
On the floor.
Yeah, I mean, they may lift off a little bit when you first go down. I don't know. I mean,
They're like that.
oh no, yeah. Unless you have some injury or something, your feet, when you're on a long prostration, your feet are down also on the floor. Yeah, your whole body should be down. Okay. I have a cute story. We'll end with this cute story. So there was one monk at Kopan, and Lama had us get up quite early. I can't remember what time, but we would get up early and we would do puja for 2.5, sometimes 3 hours, including some meditation and a cup of tea. And, but, it started early and it went a long time. And everybody had to go, absolutely, unless you were really, really ill, everybody was there. So one day, this one monk, he didn't come. And so, of course, people went to look for him and find out what happened. And he said he had gotten up early and he was doing some prostrations in his room, long prostrations in his room. But on one of them, he got down and then he fell asleep. And that's why he was late, why he didn't show up for puja. Yeah. So don't do that. Okay, any questions? Yeah.
With the long prostrations, I see 2 different things happening with the hands, and I was wondering if they're both correct.
Oh, yeah, I've seen both, and I don't think that one matters so much. Yeah, I've seen people do both.
And I had a thought about the goldfish. It's If we can't believe that the Buddha would know how many goldfish are in a pond, I mean, he knows all their past lives and all his previous relations with them and how to benefit them best. And when we've been goldfish.
Yeah, yeah. So he's not just looking and seeing goldfish like we are. He's seeing a lot, a lot.
Of course he knows how many goldfish are in that.
Yeah.
Because I remember we discussed with Jeffrey Hopkins this question, like, does the Buddha know how many fish there are in the sea? And I remember Jeffrey coming to reminding us that the Buddha's omniscience is twofold, right? That he knows all sentient beings' dispositions and interests and all the paths to benefit them. And that's the focus of his omniscience. Is that right? I mean, it helped me in terms
That
of...
he knows all sentient beings and...
And then all the paths to liberation and omniscience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the focus of his knowledge. It's not to gather... that's the important piece, that he knows how to benefit.
That's what's important. But as he pointed out, I'm not agreeing with my friend who said this, by the way, but for people who have this doubt, like he pointed out, he's not just seeing goldfish. He's seeing, their past lives. He's seeing their predispositions. He's seeing, how to be able to benefit them in this life and in future lives, and so on. Is that your question, or was yours a comment?
Yeah, more a comment, because I think we, just not to, just this whole question of, does the Buddha need to know everything concretely? And then maybe I just thought, the important thing is that he knows how to benefit, who can benefit and how.
Yeah, that's the most important. All the Buddha's knowledge is directed towards that. Okay, so all the knowledge is directed to that. But if you're going to really do that in the best way, you have to know everything else, don't you? Yeah?
Okay, sorry. I know I thought a long time about this, because I don't think it affects my faith in the Buddha. Just because he doesn't know how many fish in the sea are in the sea doesn't mean that I don't think he's a reliable teacher. Does that make sense?
You mean if you thought that the Buddha's not omniscient because, like my friend did, that he doesn't, knowing the number of fish in the sea is useless, so the Buddha doesn't know that. So you're asking, can you still have faith in the Buddha if you think like that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm just commenting that I don't think that needs to affect our faith.
Yeah. Of course, it doesn't need to affect our faith. The person who said it had a lot of faith. Yeah, my friend who said that had a lot of faith, and especially with our teacher, very close connection. Okay, so the thing is, to have faith, we're going to all have different things that attract us to taking refuge. Yeah, and maybe for some guy, who has imprints of being a fisherman for many lives, hearing that the Buddha knows how many goldfish in Kazakhstan, is going to inspire faith in him. And for somebody else, it's like, But for that guy, the Buddha knows how a computer works, and could be able to design artificial intelligence. For that guy, wow, Buddha must be something. But for the other person, like, that's useless. Okay, so we're going to all have different things that draw us to take refuge. Yeah.
Part of my point was that we're not talking about pebbles in the pond. We're talking about sentient beings. He knows sentient beings.
Yeah. Even if it were pebbles in the pond, when you know the amazing interdependent connection of everything, that might also be important. Who am I to say? Okay? Yeah, but there is a passage in the scriptures where the Buddha picks up some leaves and he says, I know all phenomena, but what I'm teaching you is like a handful of leaves compared to everything else that you see around. Yeah, so the Buddha doesn't teach us about the goldfish in Kazakhstan, maybe about the dolphins in Hawaii, according to the level of your mind. Okay? Yeah, I mean, they communicate about what is necessary. But, yeah, so they're going to teach us what we need to know, which is not necessarily everything that we're interested in. Yeah. So, and then in terms of having faith, we shouldn't set up some kind of criteria for ourselves for how to assess if we have enough faith. For what is enough faith, first of all, okay? And then all the criteria, to be a good disciple and blah, blah, blah. Because, I mean, we all have to accept who we are. And there's different things that appeal to us that don't appeal to somebody else and vice versa. And, we're just all at different things. And so not to compare ourselves to other people and think, oh, they're so much better, they have so much more faith, and I don't have any faith. And I'm telling you this because that's exactly the way I thought for quite a long time. I would look at these different people around my teacher. They were all like this and like this and, get together. Oh, our teacher's a Buddha and he's, he's the stage bodhisattva and, all this, like just all this stuff, of showing faith and devotion and regard and, and standing up when he came and bowing down and these physical things. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I do some of those, but I don't have nearly as much faith as these people, I mean, look, they have so much respect and they honor and they make so many offerings. And I'm just kind of going along and listening to teachings and thinking about them a little bit. But, I don't have the qualities of these other disciples. They're really good disciples and they have a lot of faith. And I thought that for a long time. And then one time I noticed that a lot of those people were no longer around, but I was still there. And then I thought, comparing ourselves to others really is not very valuable. It's not very valuable at all. Yeah. So, so who's to say? Don't make up ideas in your mind. If I were a perfect disciple, I would get up at 3:00 in the morning, every morning. He said to recite this 3 times every day. I'll get up starting tomorrow morning, 3 times, read it slowly. Yeah, prostrate to each word. Yeah. Yeah. And then if I do that, then I'll know I'm a fantastic disciple. Yeah. Lama Yeshe, when people would do all this kind of, this kind of stuff, he just said, all you need to do is say thank you, that helped me. That's good enough. If you learned something and it helped you, and you say thank you, that's good enough. Okay, so listen to teachings and think about them and try and put them into practice, and that's good enough.
If you're not genuine, it looks fake. And I've been thinking lately about, the compare mind, about I have so much things to work on, blah, 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 others, la, la, la. And losing time comparing myself with others is I'm not working on myself. And I thought about the story of the rabbit and the turtle, you know?
Yeah.
If I keep focused here in what matters, what I need to do, then things will come. They will come.
Yeah. For sure it'll come.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And comparing yourself to others and setting standards for yourself, yeah, are not always so helpful. And for those of you who don't want to do that, we have open membership to the Sravasti Abbey High Achievers Neurotic Society. I'm president. You're vice president and you're secretary. Okay, yeah, Rebecca kind of, yeah, she's got to be in there too.
Secretary.
Yeah, and you can be treasurer. Okay. Or maybe you could be second vice president. Yeah, then you can compete with her. Okay.